Thanks for that, Yorick. Yeah, those spinnerbaits, $1,000 US is the import tariff limit. After that, you're in trouble. But I think, Yorick, you're also complicit because you're part of this consortium as well. Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's talk about what we've been doing for the last 12 months in our program, Victorian Fisheries Authority. And I'll start by saying that I've got a team of five people in our team, freshwater fisheries team. We're all passionate recreational fishers. That's what got us into this game. And we have a healthy rivalry amongst ourselves. And when we go to the conference, it's on. So we always spend a day or two out chasing Murray cod and yellow belly and comparing notes. So I want to talk a little bit about Lake Eildon for a minute. Now, Lake Eildon, as Rob mentioned, is emerging as a wonderful, wonderful fishery. Over the last 10 years, we've stocked 5 million native fish in it. So, just put that in context, 5 million native fish in 10 years is by far the biggest stocking initiative we've ever had in any water in Victoria ever, and it's starting to really show some terrific marks. Now, on the back of that, that's 3 million Murray cod, 2 million native fish. Gus and I came out fishing a couple of nights ago. We went to Lake Eildon. We fished hard, we fished long, we fished at night, we fished surface lures, we fished spinnerbaits, and 797 casts later, nothing. But it's still a good fishery, believe me. It's really, really good. So I wanted to get that off my chest early before my colleagues start ribbing me about it. Righto, let's talk about what we've been up to. One of the most exciting things I've ever been involved in is finding a site for our new native fish hatchery. It's an election commitment, $7 million. Snobs Creek is at full production capacity. They're doing some great work there. If we want to seriously make a difference and continue to improve our native fisheries, stocking is part of that solution. Not all of it, but part of it. We need more native fish and they need to be the right quality fish. So over the last 12 months, we've been looking intently for sites. Now, I won't steal too much of Danny's thunder because he's going to talk about this in detail, other than to say we've looked at dozens and dozens of potential sites based on a whole bunch of criteria. And as a result of that, we've zoomed in on a little focal point where we know the groundwater is very good, the clay is very good, and all the ingredients are starting to come together. So as a result of that, we found a site. And that's it. Now, when I say found a site, we haven't actually secured the site yet, but we've got a contract and it'll happen very, very soon. I'm very confident. But I'm not going to steal the Minister's thunder on that. But it is a wonderful site. It's got some terrific attributes, and we think it'll make a wonderful hatchery. So stand by. So just roughly, we've also been doing some work around what would a new hatchery look like, and been looking at all sorts of different scaling options. We've been looking at the number of ponds and designs. We've had best practice workshops with people around Australia. We've picked the brains of the very best. We've come up with a concept plan that'll produce somewhere around 4 to 5 million native fish a year. Something around 90 ponds will do that. And we think this hatchery site that we found is going to meet that requirement. We'll focus on we'll focus on Murray cod, golden perch, and then over time start to move into freshwater catfish and probably silver perch as well. Okay, Lake Eildon. Again, we've been doing some work on Lake Eildon. Let's go to that one. Okay, so we did some work. Now, as you know, we've stocked a lot of fish in Lake Eildon over a lot of period of time. We had 1 million Murray cod initiative back in 2011, 12, 13. 2014, we did some survey. We followed up with some electrofishing monitoring, and a lot of that work showed us for the first time that our stocking effort was really going well, because we marked all of the fish, and when we monitored our population, we took a fish out. We had to sacrifice a few, and we confirmed categorically that what was making a difference was the stocking effort, which was great. So a lot of this work was done in 2014, and we saw growth rates that were extraordinary. We had some Murray cod reaching 60 centimetres in 1 year, which is unprecedented. So there's a lot of food, a lot of tucker in Lake Eildon. Golden perch also very prevalent, and most anglers that persevere will catch their golden perch in Lake Eildon, some really big bruises, including fish over 20 pounds. So we also came back in 2019 and repeated the exercise basically. And Taylor did a lot of this work, but basically just look at the comparison between the two sites. With a similar amount of effort, the first time we did it, we found about 180 Murray cod. Second time we did it, 315 Murray cod. That translates to an 81% increase in the estimated population of Murray cod in Lake Eildon on the back of continued stocking effort. So we think that's pretty exciting. Okay, moving right along. Yes, this is about Murray cod, but it's actually about native fish. It's bigger than Murray cod, this forum. So every year we start talking about other species, and we'll continue to do that. I wanted to talk a little bit about a project that I'm working on called the Maribyrnong River Native Fish Revival Project. Maribyrnong River is an urban water that runs through the western suburbs of Melbourne. Very, how would you say it, degraded over a period of time, urbanised. We haven't given up on it. In fact, we're investing more than ever in trying to bring it back. So what are we doing about it? We've got habitat mapping done. We've got fish population surveys, so we understand the baseline of that river. We've stocked so far 190,000 estuary perch, which were remnant in that fishery. And our target is to stock another 100,000 next year, so that'll be 300,000 estuary perch in that system over 3 years. Estuary perch desperately need fish habitat, so we've developed a fish habitat installation plan, which will include something like 120 tonnes of rocks and hundreds and hundreds of trees and tree branches strategically placed throughout the river. Because this river, as an urban river, has no riparian, has no streamside shading anymore. It's got pirate ships, it's got dog walking tracks, but all of that important habitat that Rob mentioned just isn't there, so we're putting it back. We're also doing a historical review of the river because we want to capture the imagination of the community around the Maribyrnong River and inspire them to help us make it better. We're looking back to Indigenous times, we're looking back at early settlers, we're looking at how important the river was in terms of the fishery, and we're finding some fascinating works there. We're also telling the sad story of how it's been degraded over years, but how it's starting to come back. And we will be putting in that habitat in the new year, probably around March, April. We're going through the approvals processes. And to make sure that people can catch those fish, we're also working with Better Boating Victoria to install a new boat ramp. So that's a pretty exciting project, I think. That's an example of what I call an integrated project where it's not just fisheries, it's habitat, it's local council, it's community, all working together to redress the past of yesteryear around poor water and land management. Okay, the other thing we're doing, Trev sort of mentioned this briefly, we've got Target 1 million commitment, unprecedented support for recreational fishing. One element of that we're starting to roll out is a commitment to improve recreational fishing access. There's legislation that's going to go through Parliament very soon that provides for the first time ever a recognition that camping will be an as-of-right use on Crown land, riverside, licensed water, licensed area. This is a really big deal. It happens normally anyway, but you can be effectively kicked off those properties, those Crown land properties for camping at the moment. In the future that'll change. It will consolidate that commitment. And along with that commitment, thank you, and along with that commitment is a dialogue that we have to have with farmers around doing the right thing. And a lot of farmers have had grazing licences, which is $67 a year from the state government, and they've managed to put their cattle through it, and that generally works well. But some farmers are doing the wrong thing and they're locking the gates and they're not supposed to, and we're going to call that out. So that's a big part of it as well. So removing barriers to access is a really big part of Target 1 million. We're getting stuck into it. We've got a dedicated team on that at the moment. Taylor will talk later on about our exciting new program called Go Fish Vic app. basically it's a digital platform where you can record your fishing information and your history of fishing, and from that you'll learn what worked and what doesn't work, and that's good for you as a fisher. And good fishers tend to do that. They collect that information, whether it's tide or season or flow or weather or barometer. All this information builds a really detailed picture and helps you become a better fisher. So this is a pathway for that. It's moving into the next sort of generation, if you like, as well. From it, we will, that is Victorian Fisheries Authority, will have information coming in from all over the place about catch rates. We'll have a catch per unit effort indication of catch rates for each fishery, for each species, and as we build that database up, we'll have a direct measure of how the fishery is performing. And that's important for us, because if a fishery isn't performing, then we can intervene and do other things. So we're really excited by it. I won't steal Taylor's thunder, but he's done a fantastic amount of work in this space, and he'll talk about it shortly. We're also, as part of the new native fish strategy opportunity, we'll get enormous efficiency by moving the production of Murray cod from Snobs Creek to a warmer climate. At the moment, Snobs Creek has done really well in recent times around native fish production, but as we speak, the water temperature at Snobs Creek around 14, 15 degrees. We've got all these Murray cod larvae sitting in hatcheries. We can't put them out because it's too cold. And because of that, it means we can only get one, maybe 1.5 uses of plankton ponds every year, which means it's going to limit our production. So a warmer climate will change all that, and we'll get 2 or 3 uses of ponds. But as a result of that, it's going to free up some capacity at Snobs Creek. So what are we going to do with that capacity? We're going to have a real crack at expanding our trout cod and our Macquarie perch breeding like never before. Macquarie perch particularly, there's only 3 or 4 substantive populations in Victoria. We heard about it last year from Will Truman. They're in desperate need of help. We need to crack the holy grail of breeding them successfully, and that's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of resources. But we want macas back in the river, full stop. Okay. Other projects we've been working on, native fish report cards. We've been working with the Department of Environment, Land, Water Planning, and we've got a partnership to, for the first time, actively monitor objectively how our native fisheries are going. And I think there's 10 riverways which we call reference waters, if you like. Each water is systematically examined every year using an electrofishing method, and we're in our 3rd year, and we're finding some really interesting information around the performance of some of the fish, how our stockfish are going, and from that we're starting to understand what is working and what isn't working. Channel harvesting. John is going to talk about this a little bit later. We think this is an enormous opportunity. Golden Murray Water have got enormous number of channels which are there for irrigated farming purposes, and right through northern Victoria. And during maintenance period, you know, prior to the irrigation season starting, a lot of these channels are drained or lowered, and during that process it exposes a lot of our native fish that are in there. So we've been working in partnership with Golden Murray Water to get into these waters as it's drained, before some of the weeds are removed through treatment, to find Murray cod and golden perch and relocate them. Because effectively they're not going to breed in that system, and they're exposed when that water level's drained. And so far we've pulled out something like 600 Murray cod and golden perch, and we've moved them into other waters where they can breed. So we think that's a really positive experience, and we're really very thankful of that cooperation from Golden Murray Water. Darling River Cod Rescue. Nick Bond will talk about the really sad fish kills that occurred last year in the Darling River, and how dire the drought is in New South Wales and Queensland, and how it's likely to happen again in the near future. And while it's a New South Wales experience principally, and we're pretty okay in terms of drought in Victoria by comparison, we felt that this was an equivalent to a bushfire disaster for fish in New South Wales. So we rolled up our sleeves. We got a contingent of Victorians, including Arthur Rylah Institute and our fisheries guys, And we went up there and we spent a solid week working side by side with them. We pulled back 330 big Murray cod, some of them are over a metre, brought them back, put them into the lower Darling River, and we think that's a really positive experience for everyone. We feel like we've made a difference. But, you know, it's still going to be a problem when these fish roll over that we've left behind, and you know, it's a vast undertaking. But Fisheries in New South Wales have been working with a whole bunch of recreational groups as well and doing the very best they can, but it's a dire situation. But we felt that was a worthwhile thing to do. Estuary perch stocking in Gippsland. We continue to expand our estuary perch stocking program. Well and truly over 1 million fish. We're the only state doing it on that scale. Estuary perch has now been stocked into about 20 waters in Victoria. In almost every water, they are performing beautifully and above expectations. I can go down with my son to Albert Park Lake and catch 38 centimetre estuary perch off the top on a summer's evening with a bent minnow, and I think that's great. Just as the joggers stop jogging and the sun sets and you know, it's just a wonderful experience. So that's an urban fishery that's happening. But in terms of Gippsland, we've got 2 perch search teams now. We're working with recreational fishers. We're getting brood stock in. We're sending them to our hatchery in Narooma. We're air freighting them, you know, with a chartered aeroplane. They're getting up there. They're performing beautifully. They're injected with hormones. 2 days later, they're bred. Really wonderful project. The thing that makes me really pleased about this project, it's not just us, it's working directly with recreational fishers. They enjoy it, we enjoy it, and a lot of trust and, you know, positivity. This year in Gippsland we're stocking over 125,000 estuary perch, which is a wonderful thing. The focus at the moment will be Lake Tyers and the Snowy and Marlow. Okay, we're also doing, Trev mentioned before, we're changing things around creating opportunities for recreational fishing, mainly for kids and families that don't have the opportunity to travel for 2.5 hours to go to a wonderful place like Eildon. We want kids to get on their bikes, we want them to ride down after school, and we want them to catch fish all year round. And to date, our stocking program has been fixated on trout. Trout don't last long, they certainly don't endure warm conditions and shallow water in summer, but natives do. So as Trav said, we're really excited about that, and I think that's going really well. And we're getting some really positive feedback as well. So the last thing I'll just mention is that we initiated the Care for Cod program with Trevor Hawkins, who did the illustration. We went out to 70 tackle stores. They all got behind it. Bill Klassen, through the Australian Fishing Network and Freshwater Fishing Magazine, got right behind it as well. And we did this work because when we introduced the slot limit, the work was telling us that we will start to encounter bigger and bigger Murray cod over time. And we're starting to see it now. People are starting to connect to really big fish. And big fish are quite vulnerable. So we said, alongside that beautiful regulation around slot limits, let's do some education. Let's ensure that people understand these things are fragile and you need to do the right thing to handle them. Not regulations, but education. So we're really delighted to be able to say that next week, well, that's been announced as a finalist in the National Recreation Fishing Program. So really sincere thanks to everyone probably in this room who got behind it, who supported it, who's got the stickers on their boat, who are talking about best handling practices. And we think that's been a really great experience. That's it. Thank you.